Hey everybody, welcome back to Isolation Play, the sports show for anybody who just likes to talk about sports. I'm Alex Budish, and with me as always is my three co-hosts, Travis Hall, Stephen D'Agostino, and Michael Schlossberg. Say what's up, guys.
What's up, everyone?
How's it going?
Another week, another day, another month, another year, another endless amount of time goes by. Seemingly no sports still, but the biggest takeaway from the last week, and since we've talked, was still the NFL draft. And guys, I'm going to start it off even still talking about the NFL draft right now. I would say that there's a lot to digest going into the season whenever we are going to have NFL football, but we can still focus on the first virtual NFL draft. But for me, the biggest takeaway was, who are the biggest winners? Schlossberg, hit me with it.
Well, the biggest winners, and we said this on the last show, you got to go with the Bengals getting Joe Burrow with the first overall pick. They got themselves a quarterback who's going to lead them into the future, kind of transition from the Andy Dalton 5 straight years of playoffs, which after that he followed up with bunch of clunkers. So they're definitely the biggest winner in my mind. What do the rest of you guys think?
Schloss, I think your Giants did pretty well. I mean, I don't know if they were the overall winner, but the fact that they were able to put some more hosses in front of that on that offensive line there and give some protection to Danny Dimes, I mean, that's a big deal. I think that's going to help you guys a lot. And I was actually impressed with the Giants a lot this draft.
All right.
Travis?
Yeah, I'm going another way. I think the big winner of the draft is the IT guys for all these teams. I mean, we tuned in expecting some really big technological hiccups. I mean, just the four of us know putting this show together, what can possibly go wrong. But shout out to, whether it's the Lions stationing their IT guy in the driveway in a Winnebago or whatever they're doing, that's impressive to run a virtual draft for 3 days and not have any problems.
Oh, I think a couple of lesser known or like less focused on ones could be, and I'm going to throw it out there. Day one is pretty easy. You focus on round one, but I think the Vikings in rounds 4 through 7 really improved on their defense. They had 13 picks, and they really tried to improve on a defense that kind of struggled last year. So it might be interesting to look out for them. But I don't know. I think it's easy for us to want to pick winners, but it's always a lot more fun to talk about the losers. And guys, I'm going to flip it up to you. Maybe I'm going to give you two teams, and you can tell me if there's more. But for me, the two that stick out the most have got to be the Raiders and the Packers. And Schlossberg, start me off with that. What do you think?
Well, the Packers are obviously, in everyone's opinion right now, the biggest loser because, you bring in Jordan Love out of Utah State, who they might think he is the future. But if you're the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers, the future is right now. They have never, in the 13 years he's been the starting quarterback over there, they've never drafted a tight end, a wide receiver, or a running back in the first round. And I understand when you're Aaron Rodgers, who's supposed to be a top 5 quarterback of all time, that you probably shouldn't need any help. But at the end of the day, this is towards the tail end of his career. We've seen, what these quarterbacks need at the end of the career, whether it's Brady needing a little bit better of a defense for his most recent championship, Peyton Manning being carried by that defense, and Von Miller for their title run there. You need to get some type of help towards the end of these Hall of Fame type quarterbacks' careers.
Travis?
Yeah, I agree. The Raiders and Packers had the worst draft. So I'm going to go a different way. Roger Goodell, in 3 days, we got to see a lot of GMs and coaches flex their setups. When we talked about this last episode, whether it's Jerry's $250 million yacht, Kingsbury's Arizona lair, or Mike Zimmer's cabin of death. But I think Roger Goodell has a really basic basement. I mean, this guy's the commissioner of the NFL, making over $10 million a year in salary, and he has a basement setup that looks like it could be any of ours. Well, maybe not Schwab because we don't live in states with basements, but not impressed with that setup. And then the combination of the weird wardrobe change day one, the weird interaction with the fans, which was obviously pre-recorded. So another just poor performance from Roger Goodell.
Stephen, I'm going to give you a curveball question here. I just thought of it, actually, seriously, just now. The one takeaway that I had was we haven't seen a lot of it in recent times, but more of it's coming about players that still want to play in the NFL that change their positions. And the only reason I think about this is because Khalil Tate, quarterback for Arizona, where Michael Schlossberg and I went to college, signed not as a quarterback, but as a wide receiver, as a free agent. What do you think about that? Is it good for players that want to do that? Is it just take anything you can get to get in the league?
I don't think it really ever works out right. The first guy that comes to mind is Denard Robinson, who was on the cover of of the NCAA football franchise video game, and was a huge stud Michigan quarterback. Ended up being a running back, quote, offensive weapon for the Jags and fizzled out. I mean, I think it really, really helps. It's a good paycheck for those guys that normally wouldn't be able to play at all in the league. So good for them on at least getting a rookie contract. But I don't think you're ever going to see anybody really pan out by changing their positions last minute like that.
So Khalil Tate signs as a wide receiver for the Eagles, but then the Eagles also go out and draft another quarterback in Jalen Hurts. Schlossberg, good move, bad move, just for some publicity? Yeah. Why'd they do it?
There's two things I love to discuss more than anything. My own New York Football Giants, and I also love to discuss the Philadelphia Eagles. This is, if you know me, this is the team I despise the most in sports. I'd cut off a kidney to beat them on a Sunday afternoon at Giant Stadium. So, Howie Roseman, the GM of the Eagles, he is trying way too hard with Jalen Hurts in the second round. I know we're talking about Khalil Tate, but I bring this up because you get an undrafted free agent if you're Roseman and the Eagles, Khalil Tate, who can do a lot of the same type of things that Jalen Hurts can do. I know we saw Jalen Hurts develop quite well as a passer in his 1 year at Oklahoma, but if you go down the line of Oklahoma quarterbacks in the no-defense Big 12, whether it be Josh Heupel, whether it be Jason White, whether it be Baker Mayfield, and now Jalen Hurts, I know I skipped some guys there, but those guys are going to put up numbers, Sam Bradford as well. So I'm not sure that I'm drafting a gadget type of player when you got Carson Wentz sitting there, a guy who you pay quite handsomely, just to put him in the second round and try to imitate what the New Orleans Saints have done with Taysom Hill. And you want to say, we're going to try to do what Taysom Hill does. Taysom Hill is a significantly better athlete, faster runner than Jalen Hurts could ever dream about. Jalen Hurts is a guy who I think ran a 4.8 40, and Taysom Hill ran among the fastest 40s ever, somewhere between like 4.3 or 4.2 something.
It seems it's a risky move. I mean, obviously, it seems like a bold strategy, but I agree with you. I don't think it's going to pan out. Travis, one more thing. I'm thinking about people who need more help, and I was going to pose that question to you. But again, the genius I am, more things just popping into my head. But another storyline from the NFL that kind of tees off the draft, but still a storyline question. Jameis Winston, crab legs himself, signing with the Saints. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I don't get it. It's filling the hole that Teddy Bridgewater left by going to Carolina, but you don't need 3 QBs. And, despite all the evidence to the contrary, the Saints seem to think that Taysom Hill is going to be their guy when Drew Brees retires. They just paid Taysom Hill 2 years. I think it was $21 million. That's pretty good money for a backup QB. That's the money you pay if you think Drew Brees only has 1 year left in him. So from the Saints' perspective, I don't really get it. We don't know the details of the deal. Maybe it's, a $2-3 million deal, in which case, okay, that makes sense. That's some insurance on your 41-year-old QB. But if you're the Saints, you got to just transition this to Taysom Hill. That's your guy. You got to stick with it. Jameis Winston, maybe it makes sense. You get to learn kind of the same way that Teddy Bridgewater learned over the last few years and then got paid in Carolina. So I could get where he's seeing the market not really wanting him to be a starting QB, so go to the best situation to be a backup. But it's just a bizarre move.
Yeah, I think he's also thrown more completions, albeit they were interceptions at the time, to Saints players than Taysom Hill probably has at the time. Was that a stat I just saw? It was like 7-10 that he's thrown more completions at this point than Taysom Hill.
Jameis Winston last year, the first member of the 30-30 touchdown interception club, which is not a great club to be a part of.
It's not good. Steven, bouncing off of that, I know that we've talked and made fun of your Jags, my Rams a little bit, but in your opinion, who still needs the most after this draft to get to a competitive level? Who needs more and who needs the most?
The Patriots seems like they're riding with Jarrett Stidham right now, the kid from Auburn, and I've never been impressed with him watching Auburn play the last couple of years. You had quarterbacks like Fromm that were on the board late that they could have came in and got. I think they still need someone. They need more, at least QB depth over there in New England. I just don't think that's the signal caller that's really going to get them to where they want to be competitively. And I would be very shocked if they didn't take one next year, but I mean, it's going to be a pretty miserable year if they're going to run with a pretty green guy like Stidham all year.
Travis and Schlossberg, we'll finish off the draft with that. Who do you still think needs the most help? Travis?
I mean, I think it's the Raiders. I mean, I think they just did a terrible job in the draft, reaching for everybody. You know, they do what they always do. They take somebody who they could have traded back and gotten 15 picks later. And Derek Carr is clearly not the answer. So as a Bolts fan, I love that they screwed up this draft. And I don't know if that Gruden-Mayock combo works.
Yeah, not bad. Good pick. Schlossberg?
I'm going to have to say the Bengals still need the most help because you know why? Because you draft Joe Burrow, who I love, obviously. You know about the 60-plus touchdowns that he contributed to last season at LSU. But this is a team that's going to eventually have to start to rebuild from the ground up. A.J. Green, who's a Hall of Fame type of player, and Carlos Dunlap, who's not quite a Hall of Fame type of player, but perhaps on the next tier right below, are going to move off these guys eventually. So they're going to continue to need more help if they want to support Joe Burrow and turn the Bengals a little bit around and try to get better than their 2011 to 2015 years in which they made the playoffs every year.
I like it. I'm going to, again, make it all about me. I think that the Rams need a lot of help. And we were joking about it in our little group chat here, going about it every day. The Rams were going into this draft knowing that they needed offensive lineman help. They didn't draft an offensive lineman to the last pick in the 7th round. They were drafting running backs. They were drafting receivers. They were drafting tight ends. It doesn't make any sense. They are, right now, in my opinion, the 4th best team in that division behind the Cardinals, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. I don't understand what they were doing. I also need to say that they've proven in the past that they can draft well. They've made good draft picks, and obviously it's pretty easy when you get the likes of like Aaron Donald on your team. But they've made some questionable choices in the last couple of years after getting this Super Bowl bug. And for a team that had high hopes, and now with this new stadium open up and big money expectations, in my opinion, they kind of fell flat on their face in the draft. So I think they need a lot of help going forward. But with that said, I'm going to tee it up, and our great producer Harold might want to throw up this graphic here. Colin Cowherd tweeted this out a couple days ago, the top 10 players in the NFL according to them, and I think we can all agree that this list is just ridiculous. I don't think any of us are going to actually agree with it. But while the graphic's up, I'm going to read it out here. He's got Russell Westbrook, number 1, McCaffrey, number 2, Donald, number 3, Patrick Mahomes, 4, George Kittle, number 5, Jamal Adams, 6, Mike Evans, 7, Lamar Jackson, 8, Ezekiel Elliott, 9, and Tom Brady, number 10. Now, I love arguing about whatever Colin Cowherd says in this show. I think is ridiculous at the time anyway. But I wanted to pose it to our own little expert panel here, and we'll start off with the football god himself, Mike Schlossberg. Give me your top 5, and let's argue a little bit amongst ourselves.
So I had to pull up the phone here to write down exactly what I was thinking about, what my top 5 is here. And I don't disagree with Colin on a lot of these players. I am going to have one wild card in here. So let's start with number 5, Lane Johnson. I bet most of you have not heard of him. He's an offensive lineman on the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, I bring this up because Carson Wentz, his passer rating increases by about 20 points when this guy plays versus when this guy doesn't play. And if you've listened to me before on some Schloss rants, you know what I think of Carson Wentz. I think the guy has all the ability. He can make every throw with all of his athleticism. So a guy that has this much of an impact on a quarterback who I already think is very good, I think is very warranted of being in my top 5 list. I've watched Lane Johnson not only pass block, I've watched him run block. This is a guy who at the offensive tackle position can make every type of block you want. He can go man on man. He can pull around the edge, which not many tackles can do. He's a former college tight end. So he's definitely my 5th best player in the NFL. Now, he's had some drug issues with staying on the field. He's had some other injury issues. But when he plays, that guy has a significant impact on the game and is not a player that many people talk about. Number 4, Christian McCaffrey. We know what he can do from the fantasy football perspective. You know, he's got such quick twitch rotations, and he can move all around, make all sorts of cuts. Very impressive what he's able to do. I don't need to speak too much about him because everyone who's watching knows all about him from the fantasy football perspective. Number 3, Russell Wilson. Quarterback, Colin has him at number 1. I don't think it's too ridiculous to put him up there at number 1. Russell Wilson impacts winning. You don't need receivers with him. You don't need great running backs with him. Yes, I know Marshawn Lynch, they won a Super Bowl with him. But look at the passing success that Wilson has had since Lynch has left. The numbers don't lie. What he's able to do, impacting winning. The guy's never had a losing season as a starting quarterback in the NFL. He's won a Super Bowl. He came 2 yards away from winning another. I don't think there's too much disagreement there. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes. We all know, we all saw this guy already has an MVP season on his resume, 50 touchdowns that year, and won the Super Bowl this year after missing, I think, 4 games due to injury. I don't think too many people are going to debate me on that. Colin has him at number 4. My number 1 is Aaron Donald, okay? I think when you talk about the pressure that this guy creates in his interior defensive line position, not exactly the biggest guy, not like a big-time run-stuffing guy. If you think about, I think, Gilbert Brown on the Packers teams in the 90s, big fella clogging up holes. That's not what Aaron Donald does. He uses his quickness and just overall physicality and brute strength to create pressure, cause havoc. It's not all about the sacks, but this is a guy who I think last year in 2018 had like 19 and a half sacks, which is absolutely unheard of for a defensive tackle lining up either head up on the center or in a 3 technique, which is, if I remember from my old defensive lineman days, outside eye of the guard. So Aaron Donald, definitely the best football player in the NFL right now. Pro Football Focus, I think, has him in their top 5. I'm going to give him the number 1 nod because I think this is an all-timer. I'm not just talking Hall of Fame. I'm talking the all-timers of the Hall of Fame. I think this guy might be the best defensive player since Lawrence Taylor. I think it's close. I also think it's tough to compare just because Lawrence Taylor kind of had a little more ability to roam all around the field and rush the quarterback and stop the run from different angles on the field, where Aaron Donald's got his hand in the ground and he's dominant at his defensive tackle position, so he gets the number 1 spot.
I love it. So, Travis, you look like you were questioning a couple of them. You go.
Yeah, I tend to agree with a lot of these picks, but I think when you said Russell Wilson, you meant to say Lamar Jackson. Because I don't know anybody out there that thinks that Russell Wilson's better than Lamar Jackson. We're talking about the reigning MVP of the NFL, only 23 years old. He has the Ravens single-handedly in contention for the Super Bowl every year going forward. And
you got to do it more than 1 year, though. You're a Chargers fan. Think about when they played your Chargers in that playoff game in January of 2019. They wanted Flacco back on the field. You got to show me more than 1 year when teams aren't necessarily ready for you. And I know he came in the middle of that 2018 year, but you got to give me a larger sample size, which Russell Wilson has definitely provided.
I get that. I mean, Lamar Jackson's played 22 games. That playoff game against the Chargers you're referencing was only his 5th start in the NFL. I think we've seen his body of work over a full season. I mean, you think about the lack of wide receivers. He has an old Mark Ingram at running back. He's a cheat code. He's Michael Vick on steroids. And, if you're a Ravens fan, you're extremely excited about Lamar Jackson. So that's where my disagreement was. For me, my top of the list, I go Patty Mahomes 1. I mean, reigning Super Bowl MVP. I mean, all of us who watch football know he's by far the best quarterback in the NFL. I hate to admit that as a Bolts fan, but he's still only 24. He's got speedsters all over the field as his weapons. I think he's clearly the best player in the NFL. I go Lamar Jackson 2. For 3rd, I'm going Michael Thomas. And I know Schloss is going to have his little hissy fit about how wide receivers aren't that valuable. But this guy came as close as any wide receiver has come in recent time to winning the MVP. Over the last 2 years, this guy's averaging 137 receptions a year, over 1,500 yards, 9 touchdowns. He's single-handedly extending Drew Brees' career, and I just don't see how the Saints would be the favorite in the NFC South without Michael Thomas. For 4, I go Stephon Gilmore, reigning Defensive Player of the Year. I think the way the NFL is progressing into more of a passing game, the cornerback position is becoming one of the most important positions on the field. This guy is locked down a defender as it gets. As somebody who owned the Pats D in fantasy, it was really fun rooting for Stephon Gilmore last year. And then 5 is Aaron Donald, the OG Defensive Player of the Year. Schloss brought up a good points about him. I just wish the Rams would give him some help because he's kind of on his own moving forward.
Yeah, they keep trying to add in someone that has problems, and Ndamukong Suh and so on and so forth. They can't seem to get it right. I'll finish this one off. Steven, I'm curious, man, because you look like you're chomping at the bit ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, I have a hard time to Schloss's list again. Having anyone on offensive line being in the top 5. I mean, I'm not saying he's not talented, but there's a lot of field goal kickers that are talented too. I mean, I think you have to be an impact player. It really boils down to either are you scoring touchdowns or are you getting the guys that are scoring touchdowns?
Wait a second. How do you score touchdowns if your quarterback can't stand back there in the pocket and throw the ball? You need that offensive lineman blocking for you.
Yeah, sure. But then, I mean, I just don't think that you could have a top 5 with a guy that doesn't really score touchdowns. And he's not even the only one on that line that's doing that job. You know, and again, he's a fantastic player, but in my opinion, and also to get at Travis too a little bit, you know, I don't think a wide receiver or a running back is really going to be as valuable as a quarterback. So my entire list is kind of like what I'm saying. It's either guys that score touchdowns or guys that get to the guys that score touchdowns. So number 5, I have Khalil Mack, who is a total powder keg on defense. 4, I got Aaron Donald. 3, I have Drew Brees. 2, Tom Brady, and 1, Pat Mahomes, a guy that's lights it up on the field. He's invigorated that entire team, that offense, and changed that franchise forever. And those are the guys that you want on any top 5. So that's my top 5, and I'm sticking to it.
Two for Tom Brady right now?
Yes. I mean, how could you – I mean, Drew Brees and Tom Brady, yeah. I mean, every year they step it up. They do their jobs. I mean, Lamar Jackson is only, like to Schloss's point, I need to see a larger body of work before I throw my hat into the Lamar Jackson train. So I went with 2 guys that I think are phenomenal, and a guy, Pat Mahomes, who I think I've seen enough to give it to him easily.
Oh, man, paying for past performance.
Just you wait for this list.
All right, Gudish, wow us with 5 Rams. Right
Gudish,
here.
I'll be surprised if you can even name 5 NFL players here, so I'm excited
Cooper
to hear
Kupp,
this
number
list.
1, Robert Woods, number 2.
How'd you know? No. But I can't believe the lack of respect and knowledge coming out from 3 guys that I respect as sports enthusiasts is ridiculous. Now, number 5, I did have the reigning MVP, Lamar Jackson. I think I agree that he hasn't shown enough yet, but I also think that I rank my players as players who can change the game at the top level. And Lamar Jackson absolutely was the reincarnation of Michael Vick, and in my opinion, he's absolutely changed the game. That gets him the number 5 spot. Number 4, and this is the lack of respect, and you all need to go back to school, because maybe you forgot that someone is coming back in the league right now, and I don't care that he didn't play last year. He is back in the league, and his name is Robert Gronkowski. Absolutely a top 5 player in the NFL.
Gosh.
Absolutely.
Arizona homer.
Wow.
Might as well be, but it doesn't change the fact that he's the most dominant tight end.
That one.
Most dominant tight end
right.
of all time. Absolutely. And he's got Stevens' top, number 2 quarterback, throwing the ball all the time. Watch out for Gronkowski. Absolutely the number 4 player in the league right now. Number 3, another one that no one mentioned because you guys are just ridiculous, Aaron Rodgers. Did we forget about Aaron Rodgers? What happened to Aaron Rodgers? He still throws the ball pretty well. I'm not going to let anyone talk.
Yeah,
Aaron Rodgers absolutely changes the game. He hasn't had a lot of offensive weapons around him. He's been injured. He's come back, and he sees what happens when the Packers – what happens to the Packers when he comes back and plays well. Changes the game, changes the league. Absolutely a top 5 quarterback in the league, not alone number 3 on my list overall. Number 2, Patrick Mahomes. Super Bowl MVP, Super Bowl winner. Got to give it to him. He changes the game for the league and for the better. He's dominant. He makes plays out of nothing, changes the way that the Chiefs performed, and changes the way that defenses have to attack a quarterback. Absolutely, right now, the best quarterback in the league, number 2. And number 1, absolutely, because I'm a Rams homer, Aaron Donald is the best player, bar none, in this league. I absolutely agree with Schlossberg, and I hate doing that. He is so dominant as a defensive tackle, but more so, like I said, he changes the way that people have to play against him. And that, as the mark of the best player in the NFL, changes schemes, changes offenses. He is by far the most dominant and best player in this league.
That list actually isn't bad, except for the Gronk take. It's pretty awful, but the rest is not bad.
4th best pass catcher on the Bucks.
I'm just saying, we haven't seen a rejuvenated, partied on, I don't know, Gronkowski yet. I'm excited to see what he can do. And before he retired, he was easily the best tight end ever. So why wouldn't he be in the top 5?
Does being a 24/7 champion help his case?
It'll be interesting to see. I like the list. From everybody. I had to get a little Arizona love in there. We don't have a lot of good NFL players, so
we didn't even have anyone drafted in this draft. I mean,
I know. Only Pac-12 school that didn't have someone drafted.
I guess someone's recruiting classes haven't been eligible to be drafted yet because he's only been there for 2 years. But I guess that's probably why for now.
Well, that was a good hot take, and someone who has good hot takes themselves is Michael Schlossberg, and I think it's time for a Schloss rant.
All right, so I want to talk about social media departments of 2 of my 4 favorite teams, the New York Football Giants and the New York Knicks, okay? The Giants posted something on their Facebook page, and it said something like, the content you want to see, okay? And it's like pictures of the guys they drafted, and it's highlights of them making blocks, catching balls. And I'm just thinking to myself, you know what? If you found my Limbrook Owls 2006 footage, you could even make me seem good, blocking, being the middle wedge guy, covering punts out there, So don't overhype these guys. These guys haven't played yet. It's a little ridiculous, in my opinion, what I had to watch on there. The content that I want to see, and this is really the main point of the rant, the content I want to see is beating the Philadelphia Eagles rear end, beating the Dallas Cowboys rear end, showing me Super Bowl victories against the Patriots, against the Bills, against the Broncos before I was even born. That's the type of content I want to see. And I hate to get on the person running the social media department for the New York Giants. It's probably some Brooklyn hipster living in Dumbo sharing a studio apartment with 4 other people in Williamsburg who wouldn't know Charles Oakley, Patrick Ewing from Lawrence Taylor if they were standing in their backyard eating mayonnaise out of a jar, okay, right in front of them. Do better. And to get on the Knicks, because we were going to talk about this Last Dance, and if we don't talk about the Last Dance Bulls documentary, that's okay. They're posting, can't wait for the Last Dance tonight. Are you not aware that they ended the Knicks season? Do you have a clue, person running this department? Do you have any idea? Have you seen a game? Do you know about the game of basketball? Because you probably don't. All right, I'm not interested that, a picture of the Knicks made it into the documentary. There's Patrick Ewing taking a jump ball. Get a clue. Get out of your stupid studio apartment that you're sharing with 4 people. Watch an old game. They're all on YouTube. And to compare it to what another one of my teams are doing during this time, the New Jersey Devils on their social media accounts, they're posting about Ken Danico hoisting up 3 Stanley Cups because that is the content that we want to see. And if you don't know who Ken Danico is, Google him. He's got a face only his mother can love, with teeth missing all throughout where they should be when he's smiling. The only person besides his mother that would love it is me, because I watched this guy hoist 3 cups during my youth, Ken Danico. Shout out to him and Scott Stevens and Martin Brodeur for getting the Devils 3 cups and getting me into the game of hockey as a youngster. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, just to counter this, what the Giants were doing, they had a video interview with their coach and GM. Give me something. Get me Gettleman on there. Get me Joe Judge on there talking about these picks. Don't give me this garbage about the content you want to see, because you wouldn't know the content I want to see because you've never seen the game been played.
Schlossberg, do you want to have a chance to clarify the mayonnaise comment?
Yeah, I was trying to say macaroons. Passover was a couple of weeks ago. Definitely enjoyed some macaroons. May have bought some the other day, even though it's no longer Passover. You can, of course, enjoy those year-round. So not mayonnaise. I don't know where I was going with that.
Okay, good rant overall. I think that'll lead into a crossover leading towards the NBA, and I'm going to start it off by saying that the Big Dance obviously aired part 3 and 4, the Michael Jordan documentary. For those of you who have seen it, great stuff. The Rodman episode was particularly compelling in my mind. And that's going to actually lead me to my Bootish's big take today. And that is, if you did see it, here's the story. If not, spoiler alert, Dennis Rodman, when Scottie Pippen came back from injury, came to Jordan and the Bulls and said that he needed a vacation. And Phil Jackson said, could you do it in 48 hours? And Travis, you can back me up on this. Ended up being 4 days. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was Rodman, but yeah, it was 4 days Vegas bender in the middle of the season.
What did I say? Did I not say Rodman?
I think it's Scotty.
Oh, when Scotty came back from injury, Rodman said he needed the vacation. So thank God. I was like, that's my big take off to a bad start. Rodman, obviously known as being an animal, one of the best rebounders, if not the best rebounder of all time, says he needs a vacation in the middle of the season. Here's the big take. Absolutely deserved and full on every time with a player like that, you should get it. Now, you got to remember, this is the 90s era basketball. This is a different style of basketball than you want today. Nowadays, you can't even get time off for looking at someone wrong or saying you have a cold unless you're Kawhi Leonard, Travis. But beyond that, it's just going to be
load management.
What a time to be alive in that era of basketball, because you let a guy who changes the face of a franchise in terms of one specific element for the Bulls that were gelling so well. You say to yourself, how could you let a guy go to Vegas for 48 hours? But Phil Jackson, the Zen master himself, absolutely knew it was the right thing to do. Tried to tailor it a little bit. Dennis Rodman took advantage of it, like Dennis Rodman would do at that time. And I say to myself, could that happen in today's basketball? Absolutely not. But was it well-deserved at that time? 100%. And if you were Phil Jackson, you should do it every single time a player of that caliber needs that kind of break to reset. When you are known as this outlandish figure, and you've had to be cooped up and be one-sided in this straight-laced basketball mentality for so long during that Scottie Pippen injury, you have to blow off steam. And that was the only way that Rodman was going to get his head around getting back into what he was to take that vacation to Vegas. We've all been there before. Who doesn't want to go to Vegas for 48 hours? Schlossberg, am I right or am I wrong?
Oh, I mean, Vegas is this is a friendly environment, so I'll let you guys kind of elaborate on that. But yeah, Rodman, he needed a vacation, a little too stressed out. We all know Rodman has not exactly been the most stable individual throughout his life. He went intense, whether it's off the court, on the court, diving into the stands for loose balls. That was probably one of my favorite parts of these two episodes, was just Rodman kind of like throwing his body into the stands with no regard for anyone sitting there or even himself to track down a loose ball. So I think that kind of started the load management, as someone on social media, one of the NBA players now, pointed out last night on either Instagram or Twitter.
Not a bad take. Steven?
I don't know if The Last Dance will get into this or not, but I really hope they do, because in my opinion, how could you put the kibosh on Rodman for doing that when Jordan was taking nightly rendezvous to Atlantic City, gambling and coming back and playing the next day? I mean, those legends are very well known. That was happening all the time. This is a different era of basketball. So no, Phil Jackson can't say no to Rodman for wanting to do that, because everyone knew Jordan was taking quick round trip flights to get in some casino cards or poker games. It was just a different era. How about around that time, or a couple of years after, you had Kobe and Celtics players playing long poker games into the nights with celebrity poker players. I mean, it happens all the time in the NBA. I mean, I think it's stopped now, but during that time it was totally fair. Yeah. And it was the right move, and it obviously paid dividends for them.
Travis, you and I have spent many a night in Vegas together. What do you think about it?
Oh, I'm 100% on board with this. You know that. I mean, we're from LA. We do Vegas vacations every year. And who among us has not been stuck in their job 6 months and thought, you know what, I could really use a little weekend in Vegas. Unfortunately, you and I don't party like him. I don't recall Carmen Electra ever opening our hotel door. But, we've had a good time, whether it's downtown Vegas or Topgolf. We have our own fun in Vegas.
I agree. Finally, of the first 3 episodes, people agree with my big take that it's absolutely necessary to give Vegas vacations. I think we should start getting that at this show. I'm thinking I need a quick trip out to Vegas for the weekend. Any other big thoughts from The Last Dance besides the fact that I want to quickly see the next 6 episodes, like immediately, but any other big takes from parts 3 and 4?
Carmen Electra still has it. That's number one. Number two, this story about Michael Jordan flying out to Vegas to get Rodman. Who believes that Jordan wasn't going out there to get some bets in himself? I mean, come on. We know what happened that night. Let's not kid ourselves, okay? And 3,
opportunity presented itself.
How amazing were those Detroit Pistons teams, the Bad Boys Piston teams? I mean, I was so fired up after watching that. I wanted to turn on the 30 for 30 on those teams. I mean, that is just so fun to watch. Isaiah Thomas is so fun. Great team. So that was my big 3 takeaways from last night's episodes.
Sauce, any big thoughts?
My big thoughts is I need this documentary to go into after the 1993 season, which has still not been done. And I need to know exactly why Michael Jordan walked away from basketball. You could tell me he had a desire for a new challenge to kind of take time off. But I need if you're going to go into this with all these great stories that have been presented in the first 4 episodes, I need the definitive answer. I don't want any more Bill Simmons wacky conspiracy theories. I need the definitive answer from Michael Jordan's mouth, even if he's going to paint it in a certain picture to make himself look as good as possible. I need the definitive answer of what's happened, and I still have not gotten that answer yet. So that's kind of my first thought there. My other thought that I just kind of enjoyed watching this, because I'm doing all sorts of research as I'm watching it about some of these players, like finding out that John Sally, who was on the Bad Boy Pistons, also won a championship with Jordan's Bulls, also won a championship with your Lakers, Budish. And it was kind of cool to find out he's the only player besides Tim Duncan to win an NBA title in 3 different decades, the 80s, the 90s, and 2000s, even if it's in a bit role, kind of that 11th and 12th guy on the bench at the end of his career with the Lakers. Yeah, still counts, still gets credit.
Interesting. Yeah, for a long time, and it was funny because he brought that up, Ron Harper was on those Bulls teams, and then he was on the Lakers 2000 championship team for a long time. I thought he was in that bracket because he seemed in that 2000 team to be 483 years old. So I thought he was in that bracket. But John Sally, great point. Travis, any big thoughts?
Yeah, for me, the most interesting thing was the fact that Phil Jackson didn't create the triangle offense. What is that? Like, whenever you think of Phil Jackson, you think triangle offense, and he stole it from Tex Winter. So that was really interesting to learn that. It's funny to now think about how the NBA's played, that they thought the triangle offense was a good idea.
Revolutionary.
That's a topic for another discussion, why people thought taking long twos was better than taking a step back and getting 50% more points for it. But yeah, Phil Jackson, good for you for stealing that and keeping that buried.
Hey, he repaid Tex on those Lakers teams. It all worked out okay. It was all good. That is a good way to bring it up. Obviously, we'll keep talking about the last dance as it goes on. Got a couple more weeks ahead of us. It's been really interesting to see this footage. So yeah, I can't agree more that just it kind of brings back like these childhood memories of just like these Bulls teams that we weren't really old enough to appreciate, but at the same time we really got. You can like now put yourself in that, like, yeah, I was there. I was trying to remember that. It's kind of a cool nostalgic feeling. So good on ESPN for doing that for us. That's going to lead me to more of a modern take and tossing it over to Steven for social media time.
This is probably one of my favorite social media posts I've had since we started the show. As a Magic fan, as a slam dunk contest fan, my boy, your boy, Arizona Wildcard Aaron Gordon, as we know, just savagely robbed of the dunk title, but he still hasn't given it up in a very petty way, which I love. I love pettiness. All here for it. I feel like we have to watch it though. He made a diss track finally, a much anticipated diss track about Dwayne Wade robbing him of this dunk title. Maybe our producer Harold can lay down a few bars for us here. We can take a look at the clip.
Ride the heat, the windy city, did you see the damn coat? Saw you in the hallway, you say young and put on a show. Didn't know that's the code, but you're about to get rolled. Even Adam Silver told me I deserve the gold. Didn't get the trophy, but I got something to hold. Jeez, forgive me, bro, I won't sell my soul. Big chillin', paint me as a villain. Now he jumped over the biggest dude in the building.
I mean, he's got it. I mean, he's good. I don't care what you got to say. AG's got it. The bars were clean. The rhymes were good. I mean, say what you want to say. You can make fun of it. You got to respect it. You at least got to respect the pettiness. Schloss, I'm going to go to you first. If you had to make a diss track about anybody right now, who are you making that diss track about?
The diss track that I would have to go with, I got to insult the Knicks owner, James Dolan. I'm glad to hear he's recovered from the coronavirus. But this guy has basically made basketball totally irrelevant for me, okay, as a Knicks fan. You know, we saw it in the Bulls documentary, the Last Dance documentary. They would beat the Knicks down year after year, and I mentioned that, I believe, in the Schloss rant earlier in the program. So I would want to diss him. It's not even that he's cheap, James Dolan. It's just that he can't run the team properly. He owns up the hockey team that shares the building, the Rangers, who I can't stand if you know me. But at least he runs them well because he gets the heck out of the way and lets the hockey people do that. I wish he would do the same thing. So I would diss out James Dolan. We could get more into my despising of him. But
I think instead of your Schloss take next week or next episode, we'll just do a diss track. I think that we should look into that.
You want me to write a rap? I mean, I was born in Harlem, but I couldn't rap to save my life.
I still want to see it. That doesn't change anything.
Travis, if you any crossover athletes that you think that could actually make the jump next
I've been thinking about this ever since you mentioned it. And for me, the obvious choice, which would be amazing, is Aaron Rodgers. I mean, think about how much material that guy has to work with. I mean, anyone who's seen him play on Sunday Night Football knows he doesn't introduce Cal. Everybody, Tom Brady, Michigan, Brian Bulaga, Iowa. He goes Pleasant Valley High School because he had a blow up with Cal after they fired Jeff Tedford. They don't love him. Olivia Munn, I don't know if you've seen her social media since they broke up. She doesn't love him. And then my favorite, for all you Bachelor fans out there, anyone who caught JoJo's,
of course,
Aaron's brother, Jordan Rodgers, won that season, and it came out that his family hates him too. So now you take all of that. The Packers are trying to replace him. Nobody loves Aaron Rodgers. He's got 3 albums worth of material ready to roll.
Yeah, it's not even a diss track at that point. It's an entire mixtape. I mean, we got –
State Farm would back it, though. They're the only people that really like him.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up here back to Budish. I'm gonna end it with you because I know you're as much of a homer and bias and have no integrity as much as I do. So I'm gonna present this question to you. Do you think Aaron Gordon was robbed from the dunk contest?
Not even a question. Not robbed once, robbed twice. This is ridiculous. I mean, why are we even talking about this? He absolutely was robbed twice. He has done the most absolute creative dunks since Vince Carter in 2000. And if you tell me, Travis, I saw you shaking your head, I'm not going to let it go. That is absurd.
Zach LaVine, baby. UCLA. He won the
crushed
first one.
the dunk contest twice. He jumped over a mascot. Do we all remember that with the spinny do thing? And he jumped over with the legs underneath, and he just crazy. Absolutely robbed, not once but twice. And I'll tell you one more thing. I would pay anything to see him say, I'm never coming back like he did, and then come back and finally get it. Because I'll tell you one thing, if he comes back ever again, which he says he won't, but if he ever does, and he comes back, he'll win it just by stepping on the court. It was the biggest travesty, and Dwayne Wade went from here to here on my list because of that. It's ridiculous. Absolutely, Rob. Steven, it's a travesty. Travesty.
That's what I wanted. I'm loving it.
You got it, man. That's absolutely. Travis, I don't even want to hear your rebuttal, but I'm going to let you do it.
Yeah, Zach LaVine did win that first one. I don't care about the spinny dude.
No, get out of here. Over stuff? 2 legs over stuff Magic Dragon?
It should have been a tie. That one should have been a tie. And LaVine even came out and said it. Take your UCLA bias, that stupid flag in the background. Get it out of here.
All right.
All right. It's been a fun episode so far. Good stuff. Let's get our final thoughts on the day before we wrap it up. Schlossberg, what do you got for me?
All right, I'm going to rail on the three of you right now. I hope you don't mind. And if you do, I really don't care, as long as you let me back on the next episode. Why are we debating a dunk contest? I understand it relates to what Steven brought up with the Aaron Gordon diss track, which was fire for all the kids out there. I feel like I'm a different age than the three of you. I know we're all 31, 30, give or take. I might even be the youngest one. What are we talking about a dunk contest for? Let's talk about stuff that happened on the field. I know coronavirus has kind of taken stuff away off the field, off the court, off the ice, like we all want to see off the golf course as well. But why are we wasting our time talking about a stupid dunk contest? Let's talk next week. No more about dunk contests. No more about free throw contests. No more about skills competitions. Let's talk.
A free throw contest is the only contest you could actually win, Schlossberg. Tell me why the dunk contest is not the best part of All-Star Weekend. Of course it is.
None of it is good. I used to be real into the game. They don't play any defense. It's garbage. You can call me the old man of the group here. I don't really care. I'm into beating the guy in front of you. I got that MJ attitude, even though I think LeBron's the best, but we'll get into that another time here. But no more talk about the dunk contest. I hope you guys are thoroughly offended that I think that it's absolute waste of my time to be on here smiling because I don't got a face for TV. I'm as ugly as can be, and I got to listen to you guys talk about the dunk contest while attempting to look good smiling.
Out of respect to Schlossberg, my final thoughts are going to be on the dunk contest. Aaron Gordon was robbed. It was an absolute travesty. And you better tune in to the 30 for 30 when AG uses that disdain from the dunk contest to fuel the Orlando Magic to the dynasty that they know they could always be. So I'm looking forward to it.
You had it up until the dynasty line. You were so close. Travis, give me your final thoughts.
Repeat.
Final thoughts are Zach LaVine won that first dunk contest. He did.
I like it.
He did.
It's a terrible take, just like my big takes of the day, but it's still a take nonetheless. I'll finish it off by saying it's been a lot of fun as always. It's good debates, good topics. Going forward, we'll have a lot more as soon as sports decide to come back. But in the meantime, there's always sports to talk about and some history to have. So for Travis, Steven, and Grandpa Schloss, this is Alex Budish saying thanks for coming into the isolation play. See you next time.